Hey 11.2 Gemara. What this video will be me reading and translating from the highlighted Gemara. For more in-depth questions and analysis, you should refer to your worksheets. Here we go. Echad dinei mamanot ve'echad dinei nefashot b'drisha u'v'chakira. In both monetary cases, dinei mamanot, and capital cases, dinei nefashot, we ask probing questions. Drisha v'chakira. Shene'emar mishpat echad yiyeh lachem. As that pasuk tells us, there will be one law for you. We explained that this means there is basically one way of approaching the law. Ma bein dinei mamanot l'dinei nefashot. What is the difference? What are the differences between capital cases and monetary cases? And we'll read the following 10. Dinei mamanot b'shlosha v'dinei nefashot b'esrim v'shlosha. Dinei mamanot, financial cases, monetary cases, have 3 judges, and capital cases have 23. Dinei mamanot potchin bein lizchut bein lechova. In monetary cases, the opening arguments can be made by either the innocent side or the guilty side. In capital cases, we only open with the innocent argument, and we never open with the guilty argument. In monetary cases, we decide by a majority of one. We lean by a majority of one in either direction, either for innocent or for guilty. In capital cases, we decide by a majority of one to find the accused innocent, but in order to find the accused guilty, chova al pi shnayim, we needed a majority of 2. We need 2 more judges saying guilty than innocent, as opposed to just a regular majority. Dinei mamanot machzirin bein lizchut bein lechova. In monetary cases, we will go back and change the ruling if we learn new evidence or new witnesses come for either direction, no matter what the change is. In capital cases, we reopen the case to find someone innocent, but we never reopen the case if the man was already found innocent and now we want to find them guilty. We said what this means is that in monetary cases, any of the backup judges, hakol, anyone who's in the courtroom, can offer an argument for either direction. Dinei nefashot, any of the backup judges can offer an innocent argument, but not everyone can argue for guilt, only a judge who's sitting on the bench. Dinei mamanot hamelamed chova melamed zechut, and dinei mamanot, a judge who initially argued one way can argue the other way. V'hamelamed zechut melamed chova, they can change their argument from either direction. Dinei nefashot hamelamed chova melamed zechut. But in capital cases, if the judge initially was arguing for guilty, he can then change to argue for innocence. Aval hamelamed zechut, one who initially argued for innocence, ein yachol lachzor v'lelamed chova, cannot change his mind and start arguing for guilt. Dinei mamanot danin bayom v'gomrin balayla. In monetary cases, we begin the case during the day, and we can finish the case. We can give out the judgment at night. Dinei nefashot danin bayom v'gomrin bayom. But in capital cases, we start during the day and we end during the day. It means that we never go into the night. If the sun sets, we wait until the next day to resume. Dinei mamanot gomrin bo bayom bein lizchut bein lechova. If it's a quick case and we can figure out the ruling within one day, then dinei mamanot, whether the verdict is innocent or guilty, gomrin bo bayom, we can finish on that day. Dinei nefashot gomrin bo bayom lizchut uvayom shela acharav lechova. But in capital cases, if we find the person innocent, we can declare them innocent that day. But if we want to find them guilty, only uvayom shel acharav. We said we have to sleep on it. They have to wait one full night in order to pass down the decision. Lefichach in danin lo be'erev Shabbat v'lo be'erev Yom Tov. And therefore, since we might have to wait an extra night in order to pass down the verdict, we do not do the judgment for capital cases on erev Shabbat or erev Yom Tov, because the accused, might have to wait the entire weekend or wait over Shabbat, and that's not fair to them. It's not fair to the case to let it go that long. So since we have to finish the next day if we want to find them guilty, we won't have these cases on erev Shabbat or erev Yom Tov where we can't carry out the punishment immediately, since we do not execute people on Shabbat or Yom Tov. Dinei mamanot hatmayot v'hataharot matchlin min hagadol. In monetary cases, as well as cases dealing with purity and impurity, but that's not really so relevant for us. But in monetary cases, matchlin min hagadol, the largest, most experienced, most learned judge, matchil, begins the arguments. Dinei nefashot matchilin min hatzad. In capital cases, the most junior judge, the judge sitting all the way on the side, begins the arguments. We said this is because if in a capital case, the gadol, the most experienced judge, goes first and argues for guilt, other judges might be too scared to openly disagree with him. So we want to make sure we get everyone's vote, everyone's argument without any influence, so we begin with the most junior judge who has the least influence. Hakol ksherin ladun dinei mamonot, ve'in hakol ksherin ladun dinei nefashot. All are kosher. Any Jew is a fitting judge for dinei mamonot, but not any Jew is fitting to judge a capital case. Ela kohanim leviim v'yisraelim hamasi'in lekuna. Only regular Kohanim, Leviim, and Yisraelim who are allowed to marry Kohanim. So if there's a Jew, we said a mamzer is one example, who is not allowed to marry a Kohen, they would not be allowed to be a judge for Dinei Nefashot. And we move on to the Gemara. Dinei Mamonot mi ba'inan drisha v'chakira. Do we really require mi ba'inan drisha v'chakira, probing questions in Dinei Mamonot? Ura minhu. Let's note a contradiction that we bring from a different source. Shtar shezmano katuv be'echad b'nisan b'shmita. We have a contract that says that the date on the contract is Aleph Nisan, and there are witnesses on that contract. Uva'u edim, and other witnesses come, not the ones on the contract. New witnesses come. Va'amru he'ach atem edim al shtar zeh, v'halo biyom ploni imanu hayitem b'makom ploni. How are you testifying on this contract? How are the witnesses on this contract testifying to the loan? But halo biyom ploni, is it not true that on that specific day, in this case Aleph Nisan, imanu hayitem b'makom ploni, that the witnesses were not in, these new witnesses, these new Edim come and say, the witnesses on the contract were not in the location mentioned in the contract on that day. Imanu hayitem, they were with us. So we said we don't have to understand this fully, but basically these new witnesses are saying that the witnesses on the contract and the date on the contract don't make sense. They couldn't have seen a loan take place on that date. Well, what do we say? Shtar kasher, the contract is still valid, it's still enforceable, ve'edav ksherin, and the witnesses on the contract are still acceptable witnesses going forward into the future. Why? Why do we not throw out the contract? Chayshinan shema ichruhu v'kituvu. Chayshinan, the key word, we are concerned, we assume, perhaps they delayed and wrote it. We said what this means is that perhaps the witnesses saw the contract happen in the place that says on the contract, but they waited a few days. So these other witnesses are correct. Imanu hayitem, they weren't in the same place that it says on the contract, but they might have, we assume that they wrote the contract later, and therefore they didn't falsify this contract. But we should understand that the challenge from this Braita, Isal kadaitach ba'inan drisha v'chakira, and if it enters your mind, if you really think that we require probing questions, heichi chayshinan shema ichruhu v'kituvuhu. How is it that we are assuming that perhaps they delayed in writing it? We said that the assumption means that we're not asking probing questions. If we ask probing questions, if we ask drisha v'chakira, we would never have to assume. There would be no word, this word chayshina would not apply. We would just ask and we would find out the details. So this Braita, which says that we assume something, contradicts our initial ruling in the Mishnah, that we ask probing questions, because if we're assuming things, it means that we never ask probing questions to find out all the information. So now we have to resolve the contradiction. Amar Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina offers our first resolution. Davar Torah, echad dinei mamonot, ve'echad dinei nefashot, b'drisha v'chakira. According to the Torah, the rule deoraita, Davar Torah, is that we do ask probing questions in all cases, in capital cases and in monetary cases. Shene'emar mishpat echad yelachem. So as the Mishnah quoted for us, the pasuk tells us that according to the Torah, they would be treated the same way, that they would both get drisha v'chakira. The rabbis changed the rule, which is kind of not here in the Gemara, but we can infer it. The rabbis changed the rule and said that we do not ask probing questions. So the Mishnah reflected the rule deoraita, and the Braita reflected the rule derabanan, and that's why they contradict, because sometimes the law deoraita and the law derabanan contradict. But what's the reason that the rabbis decided to change the rule? Why did Amru, they, meaning the rabbis, say that we don't ask probing questions, we do not require probing questions in monetary cases, in order that the door is not locked on borrowers? That, as we mentioned, if we asked a lot of probing questions and if witnesses could be disqualified for minor contradictions, if one said it was raining and one said it was sunny, then a person with money would be very reluctant to lend money. They would lock the door because they think that even if I have witnesses and I do everything right, my witnesses will get tossed out and I'll never get my money back. So in order to minimize risk for lenders, we remove probing questions so people are more willing to give loans. And we challenge this answer. Elameata, if this is true, ta'u lo yishalmu. If Beit Din makes a mistake, they make a ta'ut, they should not pay. That if judges are not allowed to ask certain questions, if they're not allowed to probe deeply, they should not be held responsible for the mistakes they make. After all, they weren't able to gather all of the information that they wanted. We respond to this. Kol shakein shetin ol delet b'fnei lovin. If we remove the responsibility of judges to pay. As we mentioned in class, we remove the last security blanket that a lender has, that a lender knows that even if they go to court and they have witnesses, but the court is corrupt or lazy and decides not to take their responsibility seriously, that they have the concept of ta'u yishalmu. They have this concept that if Beit Din really makes a mistake, that Beit Din will pay them back. So if we say that Beit Din is never going to be responsible anymore, then people won't give out loans because we're removing their insurance policy, we're removing their last-ditch effort to get their money back. And then if they know that Beit Din will not be financially responsible, they will be no el v'delet. They will lock the door. So again, we want to minimize risk for the lenders as much as possible. So we say that it is true that judges can't ask certain questions, but at the end of the day, the judges need to be responsible in order that we can ensure that people still give out loans. We offer a new approach now, a new pitaron, a new solution. Rava Amar, matnitin dahacha b'dinei knasot. Our Mishnah, which said that we ask probing questions, is dealing with dinei knasot, is dealing with the laws of fines. V'idach, and the other, meaning the Braita, b'hodaot v'halvaot. So the Mishnah, which said that we do ask probing questions, is talking about laws of fines, like paying back double for stealing and other things that have nothing to do with loans. But the other one, the Braita, which said that we do not ask probing questions, was dealing with loans. We are concerned that people need to have access to loans. But instead of saying that the Mishnah is Doraita and the Braita is Derabanan, we say that the Mishnah and the Braita are dealing with different cases. The Mishnah dealing with fines and the Braita dealing with Hodaot v'halvaot, admissions and loans. A third solution, Rav Papa Amar Idi v'Idi b'Hoda'a v'halva'a. Both the Mishnah and the Braita, he rejects Rava's distinction between knas and loans, between fines and loans. He says, no, both the Mishnah and the Braita, Idi v'Idi, are dealing with loans. So how do we explain the contradiction? Kan b'din meruma, the Mishnah, which says that we ask probing questions, is talking about a potentially fraudulent trial, a trial in which the judges sense that a claim is a lie or that we have known liars on the witness stand or making accusations. So if the judges have reason to expect fraud, they should ask probing questions to reveal it. Kan, but the Braita, bedin she'eno meruma, in a case in which the judges don't suspect any fraud going on, that it's a normal court case with normal claims, they do not ask probing questions. And we support Rav Papa's answer that we'll see that somewhere else there is a distinction between din meruma and din she'eno meruma. Rav Papa is not making up this distinction that we treat these laws differently. We bring a support from a statement of Reish Lakish. Kid Reish Lakish, as Reish Lakish said, the Reish Lakish Rami Ketiv. Reish Lakish Rami from the same shorish as Uraminhu notes a contradiction between a Ketiv, between two psukim. One pasuk says, "B'tzedek tishpot amitecha," that you shall judge your fellow with justice. B'tzedek uchtiv, and another pasuk says, "Tzedek tzedek tirdof." Haketzad. So the question that Reish Lakish is asking is, how is it that on one pasuk we're told that we should pursue justice, and another pasuk we're told the word tzedek twice? It's a little bit of a strange contradiction, but what does it mean that in one case we pursue justice, and in one case we pursue justice? Kan b'din meruma, in a fraudulent trial, in a case that we suspect fraud, the second pasuk applies, tzedek tzedek tirdof, that we really need to chase after justice strongly, so much so that the word tzedek is repeated to teach us that in a fraudulent trial we have to go even further to pursue justice, in this case, asking probing questions. Kan, but where it says a single tzedek, bedin she'ein meruma, where we don't suspect fraud, we judge with justice, we do our best, but we don't repeat the word justice to teach us that in a non-fraudulent trial, we pull back a little bit and we don't ask as many probing questions. Good luck studying, everyone. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at araymond@sirhighschool.org or ask me in class. Have a great weekend.